Welcome back to Learning with me, Ms. Killen here at MPB. So glad you came back. We're still in our Unit 1, Numbers and Expressions. We're looking at Lesson 3 today. We're looking at real-world scenarios represented by expressions. We're looking at standards A, SSE1, and CED1. I can write and interpret using real-world scenarios, algebraic expressions. So let's go ahead and jump on into this lesson. Now, some vocabulary I want us to remember. Variables. What are variables? How do we use them? Expressions. We're learning those. How are we going to use them? How are we going to write them? And then coefficients. Remember, those coefficients are the numbers in front of our variables. So we need to make sure that we're understanding all three of these. We're also wanting to see how to read a passage and write an expression, how to choose a variable that is appropriate for the passage, and know what the variables mean. I can stick a variable in anything, but if I'm not quite sure what that variable is representing, I'm just writing numbers. So I want to make sure, one, the variable is appropriate, and two, I know what the meaning of that variable is. So let's go in and dive right into it. So variables. What is a variable? When you define a variable, you choose a variable that makes sense and represents the situation. Kind of like if I'm talking about hours, I'm going to use H for hours, 3 hours, 3H. Or if I'm looking for days, 10 days, I'm going to use D for day, which is a 10D. M for my miles. We've always wanted to know, well, how many miles is it? Or maybe F for flowers. Maybe you're picking flowers. So let's look down here at the bottom. What could we use for these? So remember, we want to make sure it's appropriate. So if I'm talking about paper, what do you think I would use if I'm looking at paper? Exactly right. I'm looking at a P for paper. What about boys? If we're looking at boys, there's how many boys on the team, or how many boys are in the class? Exactly right. I could use a B. Now what about elephants? There's how many elephants at the zoo? I'm going to use that E. So we're looking at the context of what we're talking about, and then we use a variable that can represent that context. Good job, guys. Now, let's try to find good usable variables for scenarios in real-world problems. So let's look at number 1. A rental car company charges a flat fee or an initial fee. It's always good to annotate your passages. So an initial fee of $30 plus they are charging 50 cents per mile driven. If Medeja rents a car and drives it 120 miles, how much will the total cost be? If we want to write an expression on how much she will spend, what is the variable or variables, and what expression can we use? So we have looked at our passage. Now let's go and figure out what we can use. Now when I talk about an initial fee, that means it's an amount of money that I have to pay just to do whatever I want to do. If I am getting in a cab, just for me to sit in the cab's back seat, I got to pay this initial fee or this flat fee. Or if I'm going to enter like a basketball gym and I pay to be part of the gym, and then I pay per game, just for me to walk in the gym, I have to pay that flat fee. So that's our initial fee. Initial means where I start. So I'm going to start by spending $30 plus. Now, that is a big word. Sometimes you'll see it saying plus or and. That means you're adding to. So my $30 plus 50 cents per mile. Now, what would be an appropriate variable for this? Exactly right. Miles would be M. Now, what am all of this money that I'm spending, what am I looking for? The what? How much it's going to cost. So what's a good variable for cost? It's C, right? So my total cost would equal $30 plus 50 cents a mile. That is how we are reading these passages, and we are writing expressions that talk about the exact expression and that reference back to the passage. Good job. Let's look at number 2. Cammie is a baker who makes the same number of loaves of bread each day. She uses 5 cups of flour in each loaf of bread. Write an expression to represent the number of cups of flour she uses each day making bread. All right, so now that I've read it, let's go back and annotate or mark up the key words and phrases in this passage. So I know Cammie's a baker. She makes, the same loaves of bread every day. Then she says she uses 5 cups of flour in each loaf. So I'm going to write this expression. So if I'm looking at the cups of flour per loaf each day, I'm looking at 5 per loaf. And that's what's representing the flour that I'm using, okay? Yes, it is in cups, but there's 5 cups in each loaf of bread. Good job. Let's look at number 3. Write an expression that would show the following. Max divided the profit 5 ways to give everyone on the team their fair share. So I've got profit, and what am I doing to that profit, or what is Max doing to that profit? He's dividing it. So I'm going to take my profit, and I'm going to use P for profit, and it says that he is dividing that profit 5 ways. So that is how we're using variables that make sense in these passages. Good job. Let's look at the next one. It says, let's do some practice. Now, Jake posts TikTok videos 45 times a day to keep his influence status up. Jake is busy. Charmaine posts only 6 times every day. So what I want to do is I want to use algebraic expressions to describe Jake and Charmaine's total post after any given day. So how am I going to do this? What do you think you would do? Turn to your table partner and y'all talk about how you would do this. All right, so this is what I'm going to do and see if mine looks something similar to yours. So I'm going to write Jake so we know who I'm talking about. Jake posts 45 times every day. I don't know how many days we're talking about, so I'm going to put the variable D for days. So now let's look at Charmaine. All right, it said Charmaine posts 6 times every day. Still don't know how many days I'm talking about, but I got 6 times that she's posting every day. Now let's look at this last one. It says use your algebraic expressions to make a new expression to describe the combined total of posts for Jake and Charmaine after any given day. So I'm taking the expressions that I made, I'm combining them to make a new expression. Now, if I want to know their combined amounts, how would I combine something? If you combine, what do? You add together. All right, so I'm going to take Jake's, which was 45D, and I'm going to add Charmaine's, which is 6D. So I could say their combined totals would be what? 51D. Exactly right. Y'all are getting really good at this. All right, so let's see what's next. Now it's time for you to master. This is when I read you the passage and I give you some time to work either by yourself or with your table partner. So let's look. Scott and Kayasia plan to buy a PS5 for $299. Each game for the PS5 costs $59.99. They plan to share the gaming system console. It says, use the above passage to answer the following question. 1. Use an expression to describe how much they together will spend before taxes on the gaming console and any given number of games. Number 2, if they buy the one console and 6 games, how much will they spend? Go ahead and pause the video, work it either by yourself or with your table partner, and then come back to me and let's see what we got. Okay, let's see what we got. Let me see what I can do. See if my work looks like your work. So here we go. So it says that they want to know how much they're spending together for the gaming console and any given number of games. So I'm going to take my $299, C for console, plus my $59.99, G for games. So that's going to represent how much they're going to spend together before taxes. That's just how much it would be. Now, number 2 says, if they buy the 1 console and 6 games, how much will they spend? So I said I'm buying 1 console at $2.99 plus 6 games, which is $59.99 times 6. Now, the best thing about this is we have that tool, our calculator. So I want to put this expression exactly the way it is in our calculator. Let's see how we do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put $2.99 parentheses 1 plus $59.99 parentheses 6 and press enter. $658.94. That's what I got when I plugged it into my calculator. Is that what you got? Now remember, when we're taking the number and multiplying it to something else and then doing some more math, you can put those amounts that you're multiplying into abbreviation, not abbreviations, but into parentheses, so you can still add or subtract later on. Making sure that we're understanding how that calculator works is going to help so much as we get into this math. All right, good job, guys. Here's one more. Larry brought back to his apartment 12 pounds of red beans to add to the 36 ounces he already had in his bean container. Write an algebraic expression that will describe the amount of beans in ounces remaining in the container. Determine if any constraints or limits for B are present. Go ahead and pause the video, work with your table partners, and then come back to me. All right, let's see what we got. So I know that Larry is bringing back some beans to put in with what he's got. So he's bringing back 12 pounds, but it tells me in ounces. So I'm going to have to convert, there's a word that we've heard in our unit already. I'm going to convert those 12 pounds into ounces. Ms. Killen, how are you going to do that? I'm going to show you. I've got 12 pounds, and in each pound is 16 ounces. So when I plug that into my calculator, just 12 times 16, I'm going to get 192 ounces. That's how much he's bringing back to the apartment. Now, that 192 ounces, he's adding to what he already had. Well, how much did he have? He had 36 ounces. So I'm going to add that 36 ounces together, and he's got 228 ounces. That's how much he has now inside his container. Now, if he uses so much each day, how much would that be? What expression could we use to show how much he's using every day? Well, I don't know how many days we're talking about, so that's where my what comes into play, my variable. So what variable would I use? B. B for how much of the beans I'm using. Good job. Number 2 says determine if any constraints or limits. Constraint is a limit. That's how much we can or we can't do for B. So I know that I can't have more than the 228 ounces, and I sure can't have more than 0 ounces. So I can write my constraint or my limit with an inequality. So let's look and see what that looks like. So I can't go lower than 0. I can't go above 228. So my amount's going to be in the middle. So 0 is less than or equal to B, which would be less than or equal to 228 ounces. Did you get what I got? Good job, guys. Good job. I don't want us to forget, variables need to make sense in this scenario. Variables help us interpret what the expression means when we reference back to that passage. If I'm talking about beans, I don't need to use F, or if I'm talking about horses, I don't need to use B. So you want to make sure those variables make sense inside of that passage. I'm so glad that you came to work with me today and learn with us here at MPB. I am Ms. Killen. Have a great day.